Hey Neppers, it's me, Wild Neptune, and this is going to be an Epic 7 video going over the newest patch notes, including Zahhak. Before that though, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me at Twitch, twitch.tv/WildNeptune. Okay, a lot of stuff to go over, so let's hurry it up. Already, Chapter 2, Episode 4 coming out. Feels like Episode 1, Chapter 1 just came out recently, and it did. We do get another Mola and another Transmit Stone from the shop. That is very, very welcome. Of course, more Auden, Aiden stuff, and 3 new exclusive equipment for Alexia, Space Area, and Ilyanov. Going over them right now. So, Alexia, bonus crit chance, very good for her. The first 2 here, Noble Blood, that's her S2. Genesis is her S3. So the first one will increase the Mind's Eye proc rate by 20%, so at max Molas, it's 70%. This is good because Alexia basically depends on Mind's Eye to be relatively useful at all. If she doesn't proc it, she's basically worthless, honestly. I actually think they could have boosted this even more to like, maybe like 85%. And, you know, it would be really good. The second one is increased damage by Trample by 20%. Trample is the bonus proc on her S1 when she has the Mind's Eye up, and it does a lot of damage, especially if you proc the defense break. So in a DPS Alexia build, this is going to boost her power by quite a bit, but I would opt for the consistency on the first one here over this one. And the last one is increase defenses to cast for 2 turns when using Genesis, so it is going to be an effectiveness buff, which means that I believe this gives, Mind's Eye gives 30% effectiveness and ER, which means it's 80% in total, which is nice, but I do think that the first one is going to be a way to go if you do plan on using it. I do have her plus 15, so there's really no reason for me not to at least test her out when this comes out, except for the fact that, like all new EEs, you cannot craft them until the next set comes out, which means I will have to get lucky and try to land a good one, right? As for, should you build Alexia after these? Probably not. I don't really have high hopes overall, but who knows? The second one is Ilyanov, also a bonus crit chance. The Punish is her S2, Repel is her S3. So the first one, decrease skill cooldown of Punish by 1 turn, which is, well, pretty good. Decrease in skill cooldown is very strong. The second one for Repel, grants a barrier to cast it for 2 turns when using Repel. Barrier strength, increase fortune to cast max health. She does have HP scaling, which is very nice. So in a lot of PvP builds, this might be relatively strong. And the final one is increase CR to cast by 50% when using Repel. So 50% CR boost for herself also seems pretty good. It's actually hard to say which one between the third one and the first one are going to be better, because I do think the second one's nice, but the decrease cooldown to Punish, which is her injury skill, and her S3, which you can make it so that you get to her injury skill faster, is also very strong. I will have to say that I do think that the bonus CR is probably mathematically a little bit better, so that is probably the one that I would go for. And now we have Free Spirit Terriers. So attack percentage, keep in mind that she's a PvE free hero, but Half Slash is her S1, Energy Wave is her S2. So the S1 one, it decreases cooldown of Energy Wave by 1 turn when attacking a Dark Element hero. with half slash. It doesn't say target, it says hero. So I'm not sure that means it only works on characters? I don't think it can't. It has to work on like regular mobs too. So we'll have to see. But this is pretty decent, right? Especially fighting some dark elements. The energy wave, the first one dispels 1 buff on the target when you use an energy wave. And the second one is grants immunity to all allies except for the cast for 1 turn when using energy wave. So these are weird because they feel more PvP based, maybe also Abyss based. They don't really change your kit enough to make it viable in PvP, unfortunately. But, you know, if you use her to do some farming and stuff like that, it's a nice bonus to have. In 2 weeks. Wait, in 2 weeks or next week? I think it's next week? Soon. Another quick little things that are happening too. There's free Unequipped, which will be happening. And it's not a weekend because of Black Friday. It's for an entire week. Free Unequipped for 1 full week. That is nuts. I would say that, but they did it before for like 9 days in a row, something like that, so I don't know. But it's very welcome, very good. Do your gearing and stuff like that during this time. Also, there is Hoochie's Not Scam Shop is coming out. And why is it not a scam shop? Well, because this time his stuff is on sale. So, what should you buy? Well, honestly, you should probably buy them. You definitely buy the Molagor. You should definitely buy the Mystic Metals. You should definitely buy the Artifact Charms. And at 200 Sky Stones for the conversion chest is probably worth the gamble. But 400 is definitely way too much, right? For disappointment. But 200 for the risk of getting a piece of gear that is really good. Choosing the main stat on an epic piece is probably worth it. Now, the 4 to 5 summon ticket at 960, don't buy that. The odds are 85 for a 5-star and 15 for, 85 for a 4-star and 15 for a 5-star. If this was half off at 600, I would probably risk that, but not at 960, right? And it's up to you whether or not I would probably avoid also buying the gear. Even though it's an epic piece, you're not guaranteed the set you want, so you could spend it and get like a hit set or a revenge set, right? So, alright, now we have Zahhak. He's an Earth Warrior, Sagittarius star sign. His attack at 1177 is pretty good. His health and defense are middling. His speed at 119 is relatively fast for most warriors. 27 base crit chance is high. He has a release for 2 units for defense, and his self-imprint is attack. And this crit chance will come to play as you look at his skills. So, his skill 1 is Vulnerability Exposed. Attacks the enemy with a long sword, increases critical hit chance by 50% when attacking. Damage dealt increases when the target is buffed. So, this means that right away, you need 50 less crit chance in order to get this to critical hit, which is really good. And as a spoiler, his other skill also has this little bonus here. And the soul burns with 10 souls to increase damage. And based on the video, it does seem like it does decent damage. Of course, the video is not always going to be a good indicator of how good a unit's going to be. I mean, they made Irvalin look good. So, his skill 2, Elaborate Plan, is a 4-turn cooldown. Notice that there is no cooldown reduction here. Dispels 2 debuffs from an ally and the caster before granting a barrier of 2 turns. increases the combat readiness of the caster by 50%. So, it is similar to Emilia's, only instead of increasing CR of the target, it increases of the caster. It doesn't give attack buff, and it's on a much longer cooldown. And the barrier strength increases proportional to the target's max health. So, which is good, because his max health isn't gonna be that high, probably, right? Which means if you barrier something that's really bulky, well, you get a bigger barrier. And you increase your own CR, which is important when we look at his ultimate skill, his skill 3, which is Execute. It's on a 14 cooldown, 3 with the Mola, and attacks the enemy, so single target, inflicting injuries before granting the caster invincibility for 1 turn. And invincibility, if you don't remember or get it mixed up, is the Carmen buff on your S3. It's the star buff. It means you're immune to damage. You can still be debuffed, but you can't be damaged. Increases hit chance and critical hit chance by 50% when attacking. This means that this basically negates Violet's dodge almost, and there's a crit hit again, so you only need 27 plus 23 is 50, so you only need 23 crit chance to crit with his attacks. The severity of injuries increases proportional to the damage dealt, like all injuries, and his max injury for this attack is 35%. You do have to do 35% damage in order to get the max 35%, but that is just the max. So on squishy targets, expect this to be very high. If the target's really bulky, don't expect to do 35% in one go. Even so, 35% is a very high amount, especially on a skill that is on a relatively low cooldown at 3. So his artifact too, Pure White Trust. It is a warrior exclusive artifact. And at max level, it, after using a non-attack skill, increases the speed of the caster for 2 turns. And increases this critical damage to the next attack by 30%. So, warriors with non-attack skills are things like, well, obviously, Zahhak is coming out, tomorrow. And he has one in his S2. That seems pretty good, especially since he wants to cycle his skills pretty quickly. And his, he really benefits from the crit hit damage, because he's a damage dealer. I can see maybe some Mediator Calvic builds running this too, although for him, Warhorn might still be a little bit better. You probably have to do math out on that, but a decent artifact, and the speed bonus you get no matter what, which means you can have this at plus 15 and it still gives you the important thing, which is the speed. The crit hit damage at plus 15, it'll be 22.5%. It is always halfway between the base and the max, which is not the greatest, but okay. Honestly, the biggest thing you lose out on by having it at plus 15 versus max is going to be the bonus stats to the flat attack and a little bit of health. Seeing his stats, his skills, his artifact. Should he pull on him? Is he good? Well, maybe. It's kind of a mixed bag with the side on probably going to be good. And one of the reasons why he's probably going to be good is because he is well situated against a lot of meta players right now, especially things like Green Violet, also against Violet Violet, against Rem, against APOC Ravi. The fact that he has invincibility on his S3 means that he can counterattack by those counterattack heroes. The bonus crit chance is very strong. It's between 8 to 10 rolls. It's something you can give to other stats. And the injury obviously is going to really help, especially against things like the Violet, burning down things like the Rem, and also making it so the APOC Ravi isn't as threatening. Now, on the negative side though, is these are all units that are built relatively tanky most of the time, or at least have some bulk, and will often be protected by other units, so like Carmen, FCZ, stuff like that, who use a barrier. Barrier is obviously the bane of injury set, and you probably won't get this 35% unless the other player is like super squishy or you landed the defense break before that. And if you do that, in that case, I think you're probably cleaving or have like a burst comp, and there are probably better things you can use than Zahhak in those comps. But the fact that he has good matchups against powerful meta contenders makes a strong case for him. On the downside, you have to consider too the fact that you want to damage the landing injury on the S3, but if he can't at least make it so that you trade at least 1-for-1, if not better, against these units that he's supposed to do well against, then he's probably not good. So what I mean by this is that, let's say you get like a 25% injury on Violet, but because Zahhak is... But to get that, you have to be like squishier than you want to be. Maybe his buff gets stripped off, or he can't really sustain past some of the burst damage or the other things that the enemy team might have, and all of a sudden, that little bit of injury you gave to the Violet doesn't really seem that useful when the unit who did it died. So the crit chance bonus he gets might have to be like put into things like his health and defense. I don't know exactly how his builds are going to be, whether or not you're just gonna go in and try to burst and do as much damage as possible and rely on the fact that you have the invincibility buff, kind of like how Straze's are built. Or if it's gonna be more of a mixed build, maybe bulkier, it's actually hard to say, because if you do want to actually use the S3 more than like once a fight, you are probably going to have to invest in some bulk here. And you will have to deal with using the S1 multiple times too, which is not going to feel that good. Now his S2 does alleviate this a little bit, especially because he can give himself a barrier based on a target's max health, which is very nice. It gives him that little bit added survivability that he might need to cycle through and make it to his second S3. But I'm not positive that he's a 100% busted unit like something like Ran was when I saw him. I am more hesitant to call him a must pull in a, like a meta definer. However, I will side on that. I do think he's going to be decent at least. But I would wait to see some testing done with him, especially because it was revealed that Fairy Tale Teneria, who is a limited unit, is coming back shortly. So, those are my thoughts on Zahhak, and hope you enjoyed them. If you agree, disagree, let me know down below. To close it off, we have Flan. So just go over very briefly on if you should pull in her or not. Now, if you cleave, and you know that you can utilize Flan in your cleave strategy or as a pivot for a different type of cleave, you know who you are if you're one of these players who does this regularly. And what I would say to you, like, to the players who think that they can do this, I would be hesitant to pull on her. Unless you know for sure that your speed gear and you're already an established cleaver who is cleaving as your main strategy, and you don't have Flan and you want her for it, then you are probably already pulling on her, even if I tell you to or not. If you're not one of these players, though, I would be somewhat hesitant, because Cleave is a very gear-intensive strategy, and Flan is a pretty gear-intensive hero, at least in terms of getting that speed that you need in order to actually outspeed things. So, it takes a particular type of player with a particular type of playstyle in order to really utilize her to her fullest, where in that case she is a good unit. She has established a decent niche in the meta. But she's not a unit for everybody. Added to that, again, they did announce Fairy Tale Tenebria is coming soon. Also next week is a secret repeat, and next week I'll probably do a video on both of them, so stay tuned for that. But pull on Flan if you really want to. You know who you are. Otherwise, I would say, especially if you don't have Fairy Tale Tenebria, then probably hold off. Alright, that's it. Hope you enjoyed all the news. Hope you're excited about everything that's coming out. I'm Wild Neptune. It's been a good one. Nap out.